All right. So, first of all, I want to introduce you and thank from the bottom of the heart for his present to Marcus. Marcus has come to our country. He's making around some conferences, and we are so thankful for being here in his very straight agenda, very intense agenda, to talk as a very intensive and very original position, about textbooks in the way they create hate or in the way they create concord, And well, we have here. Thank you all to the embassy for counting on us, both in Madrid and both in Barcelona. So thank you very much. And I would think to tell you that Marcus Sheff is a CEU currently of the Institute of Monitoring Peace and Cultural Tolerance in School Education. The Impact is that is a research and policy non-profit entity. It analyzes textbooks employing standards on peace and tolerance as derived from UNESCO declarations and resolutions, and present recommendations to governments, ministries of education, and policymakers. I should point out that we are in streaming also, so greetings to all the people who will see us now or further or later. He was a political reporter at The Nation and editor of the Jerusalem Post and a foreign correspondent before heading the workshop as strategic communication firm for a decade. He worked for Dow Jones International and Adversar Incorporated, and he was CEO at Intermedia and International Business Development Firm before becoming executive director at the Israel Project. He has for 2 decades been involved in global healthcare, which is a core issue in the agenda. He has briefed to world leaders, spoken at the United Nations parliaments. We are now these days in New York having the General Assembly of the United Nations, and appears regularly in the media and he has been published on multiple foreign policy outlets. He studied political science and international relations at the Leeds University, which is very nice and leading university in the UK, where he has been elected leader of the student union, which is, student union traits are very important for you and for all the community in the university, so you can be touched for that. And international relations at Tel Aviv University. And I want to highlight that he has a name of the J100 most influential people in the Jewish world. So we are very lucky boys, girls, to have him, to count on him. My role is always to introduce people and to have a second discrete role after. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Professor. And it is a real pleasure to be here. You have the most gorgeous campus. I wish that I could have said at a place like this, Leeds is nothing like this. And I do love Barcelona. Did you win yesterday, by the way, in the football game? I'm quite I support Manchester City, so Pep Guardiola. So we are all spiritually connected to Barcelona some way or another. He is our hero. Obviously, I have to do this in English, but you should feel free to ask questions in Spanish, and we have enough people here who can translate them. So if you have questions, don't feel you should not ask them because of the language. Ask them in Spanish, and we will understand them. That should not be a problem. So, yes, the Impact SC, the Institute for Monitoring Peace and Cultural Tolerance in School Education. We were founded about a quarter of a century ago, 25, 26 years ago, in order to look at the possibility of peacemaking in the Middle East after the Oslo Accords, which is something you might or might not know about, but we can happily discuss. And by the way, you should feel free to ask anything. You might have noticed there are 1 or 2 things going on in the Middle East at the moment. And so, the questions do not have to be about this particular subject. It can be about anything that you want in politics, communications, which is the departments that I know you emanate from. And so the idea of textbooks in the Middle East is very different to in Europe, where teachers bring the textbooks they think would be interesting. They have their own choices. Outside of Israel, in the greater, what we call MENA, Middle East, North Africa, we call it MENA, So in the greater MENA region, there is one book in every grade, in every subject. So very limited, and they are reprinted every year. So they are very controlled. And this can be for good, and it can be for bad. And, you know, when one thinks of textbooks in that context, one thinks how incredibly powerful they are, the authority that they have, because young people in the MENA region understand that these are the values, these are the identities that the rulers, really, right up at the top, the rulers of the country wish to pass down to the next generation. You know, if I think about education in Europe, you do not think of your president or your prime minister or even probably your minister of education, who is a politician who got this role in a coalition negotiation. In the Middle East, textbooks are very much part of the national strategy. What you see in the textbooks is the kind of society that rulers wish to create in 5, 6, 7 years, because a school generation is only 5, 6, 7 years, right? You go in, you know, really start getting ideas when you are about 12, and, you know, in 6 years you are out. And so that period of time defines the thinking of young people, and it defines the societies, a very short amount of time. And so when we look at textbooks, first of all, it's a very long and boring process. We have to look at every line of every book, of every subject. And you can have 230, 40 books. The Iranian curriculum has 360. And so that's a lot of work. And one needs to go through every single line in order to understand the, there's a word in German, Zeitgeist, which means the feeling, the narrative, the idea that is trying to be presented by the rulers. And so that is, you know, why the work is, in research, it is qualitative research, not quantitative. We don't count things, because that doesn't give you an idea of the textbooks. We could easily, you know, run it through AI, and we have done that in the past, but we don't get interesting results. We get interesting results with smart people with PhDs who understand the countries, and the analysis of the textbook makes sense with their understanding of the politics of the country. So we look at them through UNESCO standards of peace and tolerance. They are respect for the other, respect for the individual other, which is more about affection, peacemaking as the way to resolve conflict, no hate, no incitement, gender equality, historical accuracy, and economic prosperity. And by the way, people always ask about the last one. You know, why is that an important standard? But there is a close link between economic prosperity, people's economic stability, and a stable, happy country, which is one where people can afford to respect each other. So we do not ignore economic prosperity. It is an important standard. Historical accuracy, obviously. And when we look around MENA, the Middle East and North Africa, we find some really positive changes which are happening. And anybody here studying international relations specifically? Right. And are you looking at the Middle East, or is that part of your coursework?
I really like the situation in the Middle East. I read a lot. Sorry, my English is not...
Your English is perfect, don't worry.
I know about the changes that is happening now. Like, for example, Morocco is... I don't know how to say it in English. Se está aliando con Israel y bueno, es algo raro porque es un país árabe y realmente todos los países árabes se juntan entre ellos, por así decirlo, contra Israel.
He's wondering about the case of Morocco.
And normalization.
Normalization of relationships with Israel. is quite different to the rest of peoples of the Arabic
Yes.
Muslim countries of the.
Yes, so Morocco is absolutely one of the countries which has normalized. But the Moroccan curriculum is reformed, has been changed in a positive way, actually before normalization. So it is a process which started in 2011, and the constitutional reform of 2011 in Morocco produced, after about 7 years, it took a long time because it's a big country actually, and they have provinces, and they had to discuss this with every district educational ministry, but they created a really good school curriculum, which first of all shifts the balance for women. So it uplifts girls and women. It gives examples in the curriculum of women scientists and a woman astronaut, for instance. So convincing girls that they can, be equal and be successful in Moroccan society. It also, because of the constitution, it talks about what is known as the Amazigh, used to be known as the Berber, the mountain folks, and they are an intricate part of Moroccan society, and the Jewish community, which used to be 200,000 strong. It is now 2,000 strong, but they are a rich part of Moroccan history. And so there is an understanding by King Mohammed VI that Morocco, in order to achieve the kind of society of the future that he wants to see, that needs to start with a school curriculum. And you see the same. I would say that the originator of this idea is a gentleman by the name of Sheikh Mohammed bin Ziyad Al Na'man, who everyone knows in America as MBZ. He is the crown prince, and he drove the reform of the school curriculum there, where peace and tolerance are central to the Emirati curriculum, embrace of non-Muslims, removal of all hateful ideas. So they are really the trailblazers, and we work closely with them, and they are going, iteration after iteration of positive change. They have an incredible Ministry of Education with really good professionals. There's a country in the Middle East which is kind of important, Saudi Arabia. So Saudi is also undergoing a major curricular change. So another Sheikh Mohammed, this one is Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, MBS, Crown Prince, also understands that Saudi Arabia has to change. You cannot live on oil and gas revenues and be a tribal society. You need to shift your resources, your sovereign wealth, become a modern society, become a high-tech society. We were talking about the fact that they want to be an AI powerhouse, and they probably will be, because they can. But really importantly to us is the incredible changes in the curriculum. All hatred of Jews, anti-Semitism has been taken out. Hatred of Christians, the idea that Christians are infidels who rejected the Prophet Muhammad, that has been removed. The idea of violent jihad has been taken out. So changes in Saudi are really important, because Saudi is not just another country. It is a leader for the whole Sunni Muslim world. You can be in Asia, in Indonesia, or in Pakistan, but you're looking at Saudi because Mecca and Medina are in Saudi. So they are the spiritual home in the same way. I don't have to tell you that, Catholics in Argentina will look to the Pope in Rome. It is a spiritual center. And so changes in Saudi reverberate. The same kind of process is going on in Bahrain, for instance. Israeli textbooks have always been centered on peacemaking, even within conflict, and actually feature the Palestinian narrative, which is kind of surprising, maybe, given the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, and yet it is part of the school curriculum, and always has been. And so Israeli children are told, okay, how do we get to peace? How do we get over this particular period? How do we act in a conflict in a moral way? These are complicated questions because, conflicts there are no black and whites, there are grey areas, and it is very difficult sometimes to know the right moral position. And Israeli children are driven to find moral answers to complicated questions. But I do want to talk to you, if I can, about the events of October the 7th, because that was a major point in world history. It was for Israel and for the Jewish world a catastrophe, the likes of which I don't think anybody has seen since the Holocaust. And we as an institute see a direct link between October the 7th, the terrible events which I'm sure you know about, and the textbooks of the people who committed these acts. Now, when you look at Gaza, the majority of the schools in Gaza are run by an organization called UNRWA, which is strongly supported by the Spanish government. And UNRWA is the teacher of a curriculum which is based on terrible ideas. Now imagine the 3,000 terrorists who came across the border and another 3,000 Gazans. If the majority of schools are UNRWA schools, then the majority of those people went to UNRWA schools. You don't have to be a great statistician, an expert in mathematics to work that out. And we also know that UNRWA employees were involved in the massacre. We know on the Hamas website there are 100 UNRWA school graduates who they celebrate as shahidim, which is Arabic for martyr. And so they are taught ideas like Jews are liars and fraudsters, are cheats, who should be eliminated. They are taught about cutting the neck of the enemy. They are taught that the massacre of a bus by throwing a Molotov cocktail at them is a barbecue party. They call it a hafla in Arabic, which is a barbecue party. But I think, the main idea, the central idea, is that children should sacrifice themselves. Their lives have no value outside of martyrdom and jihad. They are told specifically that dying as a martyr is better than living what is considered to be a useless life if you are not a martyr. And that martyrdom and jihad are the most important meanings in life. This is tragic and catastrophic for those children because it gives them no hope. It gives them no chance of a peaceful, happy, prosperous life. It gives them no hope of an understanding of peace between the two countries. And it was catastrophic on October the 7th because it created the conditions for the massacre that we saw. So clearly, Palestinian education needs to be changed. And I wish you good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
He's taking care
of course.
Position even better than me, I think.
No, not at all.
Thank you so much.
And I don't want to take up too much more time speaking, but I would like to hear what you think of anything and of everything in relation to education in the Middle East, education for Israelis and Palestinians, politics, geopolitics in the Middle East, anywhere. Feel free to ask in Spanish and we can work it out.
So it's a fantastic opportunity we have Marcus here if you want to make any question as he invited us. Please.
Yo creo que básicamente el principal problema está en lo que él dice, que por mucho que tú quieras eliminar, por ejemplo en este caso a los terroristas de Hamas, el problema es que están muy radicalizados, por lo tanto yo creo que es contraproducente, porque tú imagínate un niño de 15 años el cual pues está sufriendo la guerra y está sufriendo pues todo este horror que están viviendo, al cual su padre lo ha matado un soldado israelí, o a su madre, o lo que sea, le ha caído una bomba, lo que sea. Pues este soldado, pues a este niño, probablemente la salida más fácil que tenga, o lo que tenga más cerca, más que nada por los jóvenes que tiene a su alrededor también estarán radicalizados, etc. Lo más probable es que coja las armas también, y entonces es un ciclo que no acaba. Entonces, claro, yo creo que sería más lógico tratar de abogar por una solución pacífica, porque ya vemos que básicamente la escalada que está teniendo lugar hoy en día es que va peor. O sea, ahora mismo con Hezbollah está muchísimo peor, y como se habla otro frente en el sur del Líbano, es que va a ser lo mismo otra vez, miles de de civiles muertos, miles de personas desplazadas, bueno, y guerra y destrucción, básicamente. Entonces yo creo que, no sé, quiero preguntarle que por qué no se intenta abogar más por una solución pacífica. O sea, entiendo las dificultades de la geopolítica y tal, pero ¿por qué no se aboga más por esto en lugar de ir directamente a un conflicto armado sin pensárselo mucho, básicamente?
I think that the base of the problem is that they are very radicalized, the environment, Gaza, etc. So he is asking you because it's an environment that is feeding itself in this sense. So if you think that to choose a peaceful, trying to find a peaceful way to connect with this environment, it would be a better solution.
Yes, I think that is, as I understand it, absolutely correct. I think all the research, all the academic studies, everything that we know tells us that if you take education at a school level, not at a university level, not where you are now, but at a school level, and day after day inculcate, as we say, inject ideas into people's minds, young people's minds, children's minds, of what is expected from them, then a significant amount of people will buy into this, no matter how crazy the idea might seem. I will give you two examples outside of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One of the first things that Hitler did when he came to power was change the textbooks to put into those textbooks Nazi ideas. And those Nazi ideas went across the spectrum, but they very much included, obviously, the superiority of the Aryan race, the need to destroy the Jewish race, and that this is what is expected of a good German. Now, in 1939, Germany invaded Czechoslovakia, they invaded Poland, and before the concentration camps were created, there was squadrons of German soldiers called Einsatzgruppen who shot Jews. Now, you know, you ask yourself, here we are in 2024, what does it take to convince young people who consider themselves to be perfectly nice, normal boys, to commit acts like that, to shoot, you know, column after column of innocent people? And the answer is an educational change. But, and I think this is the learning part of it, in 1945, when the Allies took over West Berlin and West Germany, the whole educational infrastructure of Germany was entirely changed, completely changed. And within a period of a few years, German society emerged as something completely different, a society of peace and, you know, just wanted to do well economically and wanted to shake off the past and look to the future and be good Europeans and good citizens of the world. The textbook change both ways was absolutely key in the change to society. And by the way, it happened in Japan as well. After the end of the Second World War, the part of the reconstruction of Japan was taking out of textbooks two ideas which were really important to the Japanese. One, militarism, you know, as a supreme concept. So the Japanese basically became pacifists because the textbooks were really clear on this. Militarism is extremely bad. The other one is the divinity of the emperor, which meant that, you know, you could no longer have this central figure who could tell you, I don't know, fly a plane into an American warship. This is a normal act, a normal behavior. You know, to be a kamikaze pilot, you really have to be indoctrinated, right? And you have to be indoctrinated to believe that the person who told you to do it was essentially divine, had an incredible power over you. And so these changes in textbooks, for good and for bad, we have seen to be incredibly effective. And I think that's what we're seeing around the MENA region. And that is what we desperately need for the Palestinians. The Palestinian children need a set of textbooks which have a Palestinian narrative, which talk about their own national endeavors, which talk about their own aims and aspirations, but are peaceful, which talk about an Israel living side by side with Palestinians in peace, and how to get there, and attempts to get there which were tried in the past and failed. The Y Agreement, Oslo Accords. Try again. Keep on trying till you get it right. I think that is what is entirely lacking, and what is in its stead is an idea, for a young Palestinian in school, 1.3 million every single school day are told that the value of their lives, the totality of the value of their life is how they can sacrifice themselves for the resistance. And that is both, unhelpful, to put it mildly, and depressing, and will not take us to any peaceful solution.
More questions, comments, please?
Considering the role played by the Western Sahara region in the relations between Morocco and Israel, will these affect the way in which the more pro-Palestinian or the more pro-Hamas side of the Muslim world sees Morocco?
It's such a fascinating question. Clearly, there is no doubt in the Moroccan textbooks about where Western Sahara belongs. By the way, the French, as I recall, has recently accepted Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. Israeli school textbooks have Western Sahara as part of Morocco. I do not think it is a direct link in relation to the Palestinians. I think, Morocco is different in many ways to many other members of the Arab League. Culturally, historically, they see themselves as different, and they're right. They have a different history. Their connection to Spain is very different to the connection that, and to France is very different to the connection that other members of the Arab League have had both with the Ottoman Empire and also with their own post-First World War imperial rulers, British or French, basically, to put not too fine a point on it. And so, a very different history, very different places. So I don't think the Palestinians look to the issue of Western Sahara as something that, directly affects them, but it is interesting and it plays a role, no question.
First of all, thank you for being in our university. My question is because when we talk about education, there is an investment, and from my understanding, the Palestinian government is not economically able to invest in such amount of money for education. So, which is the aim of Israel for achieve this aim of education in the Palestinian government?
It's a really important question. Everything basically boils down to economics. It boils down to how you divide up the economic national pie, right? So for the international community, there has never been a question about investment in both Palestinian Authority and UNRWA education. That has always been a high priority, and the investment is, without a shadow of a doubt, sufficient. But when I think about the use of those funds, I think about the textbooks. Now, as a financial prospect, changing the textbooks is, it doesn't even have a financial value that I can put a finger on. If the textbooks are written every single year by people working with a salary in the Curriculum Services Department of the Ministry of Education of the Palestinian Authority, then, the financial investment is already there. And maybe you need to bring in one or two other people per subject in order to, make particular changes. There's something like 1,000 changes that need to be made. But, you bring in 4, 5, 6. How many tens of thousands of euro does that cost? You think about the 200 million euro from the European Union to the Palestinian Authority, which goes to the Bagasse Fund, the majority of which goes to education. So the kind of changes which are necessary to fundamentally change the prospects for Palestinian society and for peace in the region, the financial investment has well been made. The infrastructure exists. We're now talking about really on the margins, another 2 or 3 or 4 curriculum writers for a few thousand euro each to do the job. But it's an important and interesting question.
With some spotlight on education in the Palestinian education to change textbook, the influence of Iran, for example, how will that tackle that influence? If you change the textbooks, if you change the younger generations of the Palestinian of Palestine, however, the influence of Iran, how would that affect?
It's the influence of Iran is the central factor of destabilization in the Middle East, across the Middle East. So from Yemen to Iraq, to Lebanon, to, they divide the world, very clearly in their own minds about the hegemony, as they say, the part which they believe should be part of their empire. And that stretches the whole way across Arabia and all the way up to the Levant, and it includes Israel and the Palestinian Authority and Lebanon and Jordan and Iraq, etc. Their influence is utterly disastrous for the region. Now it plays a part in education systems. Less, I would argue, in relation to the Palestinian Authority school curriculum, certainly in relation to financing terror groups in the West Bank, to financing Hamas, and to the total control over Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is another terrorist organization which we forget about. And then, obviously, Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy in every single way. It is an Iranian military division in southern Lebanon. Iraq has 2 Iranian-supported militias, one of which fired a missile at Israel 2 days ago. What is the beef, as they say in America? What is the conflict between Iraq and Israel? It does not exist. And yet, for the Iranians, to have each one of their proxies attacking Israel, and then the Houthis. So the Houthi textbooks are, there's a lot of Iranian influence there. It's extremely violent and unpleasant, as you would expect from the Houthis, who are extremely violent and unpleasant. By the way, I don't know if you know, the Houthis, the Iranians say death to America, death to Israel, and long live the revolution, and God is great. The Houthis have 5. The 5th slogan that they have is curse the Jews. Now, what is the connection between, the Houthis, a very strange group founded by, a radical in the last century, now run by his son Abdulaziz, founded by Hussein al-Houthi, who died in 2005. Did he ever meet a Jew? There were 13 Jews in Yemen at the last count. This obsession was, clearly it is, something which is, definitively Houthi, but it ties in very nicely with an Iranian obsession with Jews, with the elimination of Israel, and they are now put themselves in the fight. Again, what is the conflict that could possibly be between Israel and, this group of people in Yemen, which is, by the way, utterly destabilizing world shipping, bringing up prices of goods all over the Mediterranean because of, the destabilization of shipping in the Red Sea. Part of the malevolent Iranian influence in the region. So I think the answer to your question, though, I think is, with the Palestinians, it's about the support of terror organizations by Iran, not necessarily in respect to the curriculum, although the curriculum supports Iranian aims of destabilization beautifully. With other curricula in the region, you see absolute Iranian, the Iraqi curriculum is, supportive of Iranian ideas. The Houthi textbooks are supportive of Iranian ideas. The Iranian curriculum itself is really very, very extreme, as you would imagine. Quite sophisticated, though. And so that's a toxic mix. Sophisticated in science, extreme in its political, religious, attempts at regional control. That's a toxic mix.
More questions? Do you have?
First of all, thanks for coming. My question is about was there coexistence between Palestinians and Israelis? Is possible? Whether by nationalism then or with a peace treaty? In the end, coexistence is the basis of every society. And do you see this social contract has a long-term solution possible?
So, a long-term solution is absolutely and always possible. We have to believe that it is. In relation to Israel and the Palestinians, that is your question, I understand. So yes, it has to be possible. We have to believe that it is possible, but the conditions have to be entirely different to anything that we see at the moment. And from the point of view of our research institute, we are extraordinarily aware always of the connection between preparing societies for peace and the possibility for peace and peaceful societies. And we also are extremely aware of textbooks as a national strategy. And so what we see with the Palestinian curriculum is not only a preparation for peace, but the preparation of these 1.3 million children to be, frankly, to sacrifice themselves. One can argue they are victims of this educational system. They are told that they must die in order to, achieve greatness, essentially. And we know it's strategic. We see it. We see the changes as having been strategic. The taking out of any ideas of peacemaking from this curriculum, the putting in of all these ideas. And, when you put into maths radical ideas, not how many apples and how many pears, how much fruit do you have, but how many martyrs from one intifada, how many from the other, how many martyrs do you have, that is a strategy. That means you're using every possible opportunity in order to radicalize young people. So in order for those, the possibility of peace to happen, that curriculum has to be changed. And then, we have to, frankly, wait for the evolution of a Palestinian society that is prepared to negotiate for, that peaceful solution, which is so necessary in the region, frankly. But at the moment, the conditions just look so far away, frankly. Your first question, if you could just tell me again what the first question was?
No, it's one question.
Okay.
Is it possible this social contract?
Yes.
To coexistence?
Yes. So I think, that is what is necessary in order for it to happen.
And it's perfect because we are finishing exactly what the compromise was, 12:30, because there is a flight that Marcus needs to take. Thank you for your question. Especially thank you, Marcus, for being here. It's not easy to understand what we are speaking about. You are introducing your initiative is introducing a very interesting idea about how education can be also communication weapon also. And it's something that honestly I have never considered, so thank you. Thank you also for the Israel Embassy, the Communication Office. Thank you, Tal, for being here. And thank you, Marcus, again, for being here from the name of the Vice Rector of the Institutional
Absolute pleasure.
Affairs, and nothing more. Thank you.